I want to be a writer. I want to get back to when, literally, I was your age. When I was 12, I wrote my first short story. When I was 14, I wrote my first novel, just for me, just because that's what I like. I wanted to get back to that feeling. So I was like, okay, at the end of every day, when my lame scripts are done, I'm going to just work on this zombie book. And I did, for a year or so. And I wrote something called The Zombie Survival Guide. And I stuck it in the drawer because I didn't write for anybody. Nobody's going to want this. Why would you want a real book on something that isn't real? So I put it away, and I concentrated on this thing I called my career. And finally, I got a career. I ended up writing for the show Saturday Night Live. And in the midst of it, I met a book agent, talking to books, and told him about Zombie Survival Guide. And he said, I want to see it. I think I can get it published. And I said, well, you do that. And he did. And so that's sort of how I started with this book. Now at that point, nobody was writing about zombies. Zombies were not a popular thing. So I remember when my book got published, see what happens, Paxton, is when you publish a book, the company, the printing company, they had to print a certain amount of copies initially, then you got to try and sell them. And it was like 17,000 copies. That's like half a Dodger Stadium. So I went out and doing all this press and trying to sell it, and the problem was, because I was writing for Saturday Night Live, people thought it was fun. Now, Paxton, you may have heard, there's an old man, his name is Mel Brooks. It's almost black and white. It's called Spaceballs. So, people thought, now, that guy, that Mel Brooks, that's my dad. So people thought because he's my dad, and because I wrote for Saturday Night Live, I must be funny. And therefore, the Zombie Survival Guide must be funny. Gotta be funny, right? I mean, nobody would actually take this stuff seriously. Well, I've been trying to tell them, I was like, guys, I'm not as cool as you think I am. I'm really just a nerd who's just really into this stuff. You know, Paxton, sometimes you can go to a movie with your friends, and there's one guy in your group that just can't let you enjoy the movie. He's trying to tell you how, like, well, that would never happen, and he tries to go into, like, yeah. Well, that guy keeps telling you how that would never happen. I know, and you're like, dude, I just want to watch the movie. Well, that's me. So I spent a long time trying to convince people that yes, I'm really into this stuff. It's not some sort of one-off joke. But then it came time to write another book. I was like, well, I've still got some writing I'd like to do before I die. And I wanted to write another zombie book. But what I didn't want to do was write what I like to call micro horror. Because most zombie books, most zombie movies are about like a guy or a group of guys or whatever, a little group of people. And they got to get from point A to point B and all the adventures they have along the way. And there's nothing wrong with that. Some of those books or movies, really good. Which is one of the reasons I didn't want to write something that's already out there and done quite well. I wanted to do something different. I wanted to see the whole world. I wanted to see how other countries would react. I wanted to see how different cultures would. And I also wanted to see how different aspects of society. Now, society is a big word. I barely understand it myself. But basically, like in a lot of these movies, you see people who all have really usable skills, or you have people like in the government, but you don't sort of see how they all work together. And that's kind of what I wanted to do. And when I was a little bit older than you, I read a book called The Good War. The Good War was what's called an oral history. And I say that because, dude, Paxton, somebody came up to me yesterday and looked at the title of World War Z, and he said, oral history? Well, that doesn't make any sense. If it's an oral history, why isn't it told? Why is it written? And I was like, hey, buddy, I didn't make up that term. It goes back to when people first started writing. What an oral history means is you listen to people's stories, and you write it. So I wanted to write a history book of the zombie plague. And I thought, what about interviews? And that's what Seth Circles in the world, interviews with people who made it through World War II. I thought, yeah, that's the kind of format I want to do. That's like a good one, but with zombies. Yeah. So I did a lot of homework, and I wrote a book called World War Z. And later on, I thought, you know what? I also kind of want to do comic books. I've always wanted to do comic books. It was before, when I was younger than you, I was into comic books. Now, I don't know if you've read Zombie Survival Guide or not, but like the first 2/3 of the book, yeah, those two. Well, they'll tell you that like the first 2/3 of the book, how to fight zombies. The last third is zombie attacks throughout history. And that's something really important to me because I'm a big history nerd before I'm anything. So I wanted one dude just, yes! Take that, college guidance counselor. So I wanted to see these things. I wanted to see these stories, and I had two choices. The choice one was try to get it made into a movie, which would take forever, as we will discuss. The other one was to try to get it made into a comic book. And I thought, yeah, all right. So I met this guy, William Christensen, at Avatar Comics, and he said, "You're a zombie comic." I said, "Yeah." So I looked through all these artists and found this guy, Brain Roberson, who lives, I think, in a tree in Brazil. And his artwork was so meticulous. That means like really detailed. Like he spent a lot of time. And I was like, yeah, that's the guy. So we took 10 of those stories from the back of Zombie Survival Guide and turned them into Zombie Survival Guide Recorded Attacks. And that's what it is. So that's pretty much my career to date. Oh yeah, I have a G.I. Joe miniseries coming out at IDW. So Paxton, we're copacetic now, we're on the same page? Awesome. All right. So that's pretty much where I am and who I am. At this point, now that I have spoken to him, I'll give you guys some time. I think the best thing to do is pretty much answer your questions if you have any, which is better than me just sort of blathering. So who's going to get over their social anxiety disorder first? Boy, I just didn't even wait. Yes. Status of the movie. Okay, good. Which is good because you guys all have a lot of panels to go to. So let's get this out of the way, and then half of you can leave. Which is fine. You won't hurt my feelings. Here's the deal. It was optioned by Brad Pitt's company, Plan B, 4.5 years ago. And they got a writer, J. Michael Straczynski. You can prove that one. He wrote a first draft, and he wrote the crap out of it. It was really good. I'm sitting, I'm not supposed to say that as the author. I'm supposed to say, killed my baby. Because actually, that's part of the oath you take when you become an author. You have to stand there with your. If they adapt my book, I will say that they killed my baby. He didn't. I'm sitting in bed with my wife, and I said, honey, this is really good. So naturally, the script had to go through a few more drafts. I haven't read those drafts. I haven't read anything since. They have a new writer, Matt Carnahan, on board, and he did Lines for Lambs and State of Play. So we're all waiting for his draft. And when I say we, I mean Mark Forster, the kite runner, Bond guy. He's the director. I had lunch with him a little while ago. He's very, very excited, which is strange because I would expect him to be more neutral about it because he's Swiss. And German Swiss, which I must say as a Jew is quite strange to have this German alien. Telling you how much he loves you. It's such a wonderful book and I love it. I love what you're doing. It's all ready for Matt and his slips to be done. I'm going to do everything that's going to fun for you. So, as I understand it, here are the players involved. Plan B, Brad Pitt's company. I think Brad even knows at this point that he's optioned it. Paramount, Forster, Carnahan. Now what has to happen now is everybody's waiting for Carnahan to turn in this draft of his script. And that's supposedly going to take place, I think, within this month or the next. So we're really close, really close.